One of my big intentions with this YouTube channel was to not only share my music, but to share the music making process. And a big part of that process is sometimes getting stuck and getting unstuck. Currently, I've been feeling kind of stuck. So today I want to talk about some ways that I've been currently trying to get unstuck. I think we all know what it's like getting stuck. It's that awful feeling when you've been making progress and you've been writing and then all of a sudden you hit a wall and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how to do this anymore. Do I even have any good ideas? Every idea that's coming out of my mouth sounds like absolute trash. What happened? It can be really demoralizing, but I think that there are ways to get back in the flow. Right now, I'm kind of stuck on a project, and I think it's only fair that I share the not so fun parts of writing songs and production too. So a couple weeks ago, I put out a video where I featured some JHS 3 series pedals in a song that I'm currently writing. I have a verse and a chorus, but there's this whole second part to the song that I've been having a really hard time cracking that code. I don't know what to do, and it's been really frustrating. I felt like I had a lot of great momentum. Even in that video, I was like, tune in soon. I'm gonna have this song finished. And it feels bad to not have it done. But this is part of it. This is part of the creative process. Sometimes we get stuck, and that's totally fine. So I'm just trying to embrace it and find ways that I can get back into the creative flow and have fun again. So why do we get stuck? I think one of the reasons why we get stuck is because our critic, our ego, that part of our brain that doesn't want us to look like a total idiot or a loser, jumps in the driver's seat and is calling all the shots. It's not letting that creative part of our brain, that childlike play, like when you were a kid and you would go out in your backyard and pretend you were one of the X-Men. You weren't critiquing the plot points of the game you were playing. You were just having a fun time. And you could play for hours and hours and come up with the craziest stuff. And you didn't really care what anybody thought because you were just having fun. And as we grow, we become more self-conscious, and that part of our brain likes to drive more. And it's not a bad part of our brain. I think that ego, that part of our brain that is trying to protect us, is actually there for a reason, but we have to give it a day off every now and then, and that can be really tricky. So there are a few things that I am experimenting with currently to kind of give that critic, that ego, a day off so that I can have fun and remember that the whole reason why I wanted to do this channel was to have fun and make music. So let's go through a couple of those things and see if maybe they could help you out. One thing I tried straight away was alternate tunings. I grabbed my acoustic guitar the other day, standard tuning, strummed the G chord, and was so disappointed in myself because I was like, God, this is just so uninspiring. This is so uninspiring. And of course, I sit down and I play the same, alt country bull crap that I always sit down and play when I play my acoustic guitar, and it was just exhausting. And I remember a while back we did a video with Madison Cunningham on the JHS show, and she talked about how she did all these alternate tunings. So I was like, well, I don't really know how to play in alternate tunings, but I will try. So I tuned my guitar to an open D or something. Oof, that's not in tune. Yeah, so I tuned my guitar to open D. Initially, what was great about it is that I didn't really know chord formations for this tuning, so I kind of had to take a little bit of time and play around with some stuff, and I found some cool things. Just some cool dreamy things, and in that open D it kind of rearranges the chord structure in a very strange way, and that was really great. I wrote a few jams that night. I think I even posted a little clip of it on Instagram. It was really cool, and it unlocked this whole like world of guitar that I wasn't aware of at the time. And now I feel really excited to mess around with this alternate tuning, and I'll probably end up writing a bunch of songs in it. I've also been reading Jeff Tweedy's How to Write One Song. The dust cover isn't on this. I don't know where I put the dust cover, but it's a fantastic book. Super short read. It's a great look into his process, and it's been extremely encouraging to me. One of the things I really like about Jeff's approach is that he says, don't wait for inspiration, like invite inspiration in. I think it promotes a very proactive form of creation that's not like dependent on that lightning bolt that strikes every now and then when you're like in the shower and you're like, oh my gosh, I've written the most incredible song in my brain. Like that only happens every now and then. And I want to write music all the time, so I don't want to wait. He has some really great tips and tricks on how to get that critic, that ego out of the way and get making things. And some of the approach that he has is like kind of gamifying writing in a way. So one of the exercises is that he will write 10 verbs that like you would experience at a doctor's office, and then write 10 nouns of just random objects that are around you. And then he connects those verbs to the nouns and creates poetry out of it. It actually kind of is super awesome, and you find these word connections that you were never aware of. There's a bunch of other stuff, but I don't want to spoil it. You should really buy this book. It's super great. I've actually tried a bunch of things in here already, and it's made me like more excited about just writing and playing around with words, which I really haven't been that excited about that in the past, but now I'm really excited to like crack open the journal and just start playing with words. On the subject of writing, I think free writing is a really, really great way to get unstuck. Not just in music world, but also just in your brain. What I mean by free writing is basically stream of conscious. So sit down, open a journal, write, and don't stop. Whatever comes to your head, write it down, even if it's the most like absurd thing you've ever written. The other day I wrote this whole story about like a purple rhinoceros sitting on a lily pad. It was really like trippy and psychedelic, but I was just going for it.
The purple rhinoceros sitting on a lily pad. He waits for no one and no one waits for him. Outcast from his flock, he waits listening to the sound of distant thunder, hoping one day his loneliness will end. He waits silent and hopeless. Clouds gather and the purple rhinoceros cries to himself quietly. He is not more sad than anyone who has ever lived, and he knows that. It makes it worse. Your sadness is only bad because you don't know how bad it actually could be. Freezing the time and taking a measured step, he leaves the lily pad and gives his favorite blanket a squeeze. He steps out scared and shackled by the weight of fear. He pulls his blanket around his shoulders and moves down the path, cut through the forest.
And whatever kind of came out. And after like kind of that experience, I realized that there was actually some meaning in what I wrote, and it was exposing like how I was feeling in this weird way. And now I have this kind of cool little, brain vomit that I can go back to if I want to. It's kind of like throwing treasure out in your backyard and like going to look for it later. Another thing I think that can be really helpful is putting on an album that sort of pushes your boundaries. I think of bands like Captain Beefheart, Trout Mask Replica. That album still to this day has had such a huge effect on me. It's an avant-garde album. It's chaos incarnate. It's like someone took the blues and rock and roll and stuffed it in a blender and like set it on fire and shipped it to Mars and blasted it through a black hole. Like, it's the most crazy hard to listen to music. But what that music did for me was show me that you can break the rules. There's nothing about that music that abides by any structures that are like acceptable. And it showed me, hey, it's possible to make an album of chaos and it be considered like one of the most influential albums to a lot of people. Fiona Apple's last album has been one for me that's kind of, again, pushed my boundaries and showed me like, wow, you can really take some structures and break them, and it's okay. and not everybody has to like it. And if it's something that you're enjoying, like, that's super great. Another person that comes to mind is Daniel Johnston. He was a songwriter. When he died is when I sort of found out about his music. And one of the crazy things about his music is it's very underproduced. The guitars are out of tune, the piano's out of tune, his vocals are out of tune. But there's a sincerity and a dignity to that music because it was just allowed to exist. And I think sometimes we have to just make stuff and let it exist. So yeah, put on an album that sort of challenges you. And I can put a list in the description below of some albums that you should check out. Lastly, I think sometimes, like I said before, we just have to create stuff and give it the dignity of just existing. I think a lot of times we put a lot of pressure on our creations. I kind of like to think about the things that I make like little Pokemon or something. Like, these are like my little monsters, and some of them are only gonna be like an inchworm, and some of them are gonna like become an owl one day. And there's a sweet dignity in just letting some of your ideas exist and not putting so much pressure on them. So an exercise that I tried the other day, and this is the first time I've ever done this, I set up one microphone, I sat down with my acoustic guitar, I set up a bunch of different tempos in Pro Tools. I gave myself 4 minutes for each individual tempo, and I just hit record, and I tried to come up with 5 songs in like an hour. I sat down, played to the click. Some of the stuff was cool, some of it wasn't. I'll play a little bit for you here.
Pass the dinner rolls, pass the drinks. Harry's last supper ain't gonna be what he thinks. Opens up a beer, Teddy's in the next room, playing Dylan on a turntable, swaying with Jill.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of cool. It sort of felt like, I don't know, it was loose. I could go back and work on that a little bit more. I went and tracked some drums, as you heard later, and just sort of gave these spontaneous song ideas some dignity and just existing. And regardless of whether or not anybody hears the full 40 minutes of music that I made from that, one session or whatever, it exists. And that's good enough. And it got me excited to create more. And now I feel a little bit more unstuck and ready to engage with that part of my brain that just likes creating stuff. I hope some of this stuff was helpful for you. I know it's been helpful for me. And I just want to let you guys know you're not alone. When you're feeling stuck, just know everybody has this. Everybody struggles with getting their ideas out, but you can totally do it. Just keep pushing. Don't wait for inspiration to show up. Show up to your, journal, to your guitar, to Pro Tools. Keep making stuff. Let your creations have the simple dignity of just existing. And let me know of different tricks that you like to do to get unstuck. Maybe you have some crazy, cool ideas that we've never thought of. It would be super helpful. And I would love to hear about that in the comments. If you like this video, hit like. You can hit the bell icon to get notified every time I post a new video. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this video with someone you think it could be useful to. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks so much for watching.